must be something wrong with you, right? So you gotta make you gotta make the right decision and make the right application without making a lot of different applications all around town, because that's gonna hurt your credit score right there, okay? So those are the factors that go in to your credit report. It's very important that you understand what your credit score is, okay? You have the absolute right to demand your credit score once a year from the various credit bureaus. The credit bureaus are summarized on the bottom of page 183 in table 6.3. Okay, you'll see Equifax Credit, Experian, and TransUnion. Those are the three major credit agencies that determine your FICO score. Okay, and so if you go on one of the various websites on page 182, you'll see that the authors recommend annualcreditreport.com. You go on that website, and basically you can get for free, so you're right, for free to get an annual credit report so that you can keep on top. Not only can you keep on top of your credit score, but if you feel that the credit score isn't where it should be, that you could drill down and find out how the credit score is being determined to see whether there are any negative remarks made on your credit report that are bringing down your credit score that may not be true, may not be accurate, okay? So you gotta make sure, I mean, you know, everybody makes mistakes, so do banks, so do lenders, they make mistakes too. One digit on a social security number is gonna bring down the credit score of somebody who doesn't even have a loan, right? So it behooves you to stay on top of your credit score and your credit report to make sure that all the information on the credit report is accurate, and if not, then you can, of course, file a grievance with the credit bureaus or with that particular lender who basically has done something to negatively impact your credit score. A very important situation that you really want to make sure that it's being done correctly. I'll give you a little bit of a personal war story. Once I had basically an auto lease. At the end of the auto lease, we're going to talk about this in Chapter 8. There are end of lease charges that are imposed on you. I felt that the charges imposed by the lessor were incorrect. We had a disagreement. We went back and forth. All of a sudden, the lessor didn't bother me anymore. I thought it was resolved. I thought I had won the case. Only to find out a couple of months later, my credit line was revoked by the bank, and the reason it was revoked is because I had a negative report on my credit score. Went to get my credit report. Sure enough, the auto lessor had basically put a negative report on my credit score. Okay. Unfortunately for them, me being an attorney, I realized that in New York State, you can't have a negative report on a credit score at the end of an auto lease unless there's been some sort of arbitration or judgment in a court of law. They didn't bother to get a judgment against me. They just put the negative credit score on my record, and I sued them. Long story short, I sued the company. I won the case. They had to pay me a couple of bucks for my trouble, and of course, my credit was restored to what it should be, and it was. In the end, of course, it worked out okay. But then again, look at all the grief and anxiety you have to go to. If you're not an attorney, you have to get one, right, to get things straightened out, okay? So don't assume that every lender understands what the laws are and what they can and cannot do, okay? Credit bureaus are certainly, they're not lawyers. They're not going to question it. You know, if somebody gives a negative report, they'll accept it. They'll put it on your credit score. So you have to be very sure that your credit score is accurate, okay? And if you have a dispute, follow up on that dispute, okay? So those are the things you want to make sure that you are on top of. It's just too important, the FICO score, to many things, as we said, over and above, you know, like I said, where you're going to live, things like that might be dependent on your FICO score. So make sure that you are doing what you can do to keep the FICO score as high as possible. They also talk about, here's an article, Secrets of Your Credit Score, that I found on the internet. They also talk about, you know, things like getting cable service and things of that nature They also may be looking at your FICO score, because again, the nature of that is they give you the cable service up front, you agree to make payments in the future. So again, works a lot like a loan situation, possibly getting insurance, right? They give you the insurance up front, you make premium payments later. So all those situations might be dependent on your FICO score first, whether you get the insurance, whether you get the cable, and secondly, the amount you're going to pay for those. Higher the risk, the higher the rate is going to be. So those are the types of things you want to make sure that you are well aware of and on top of. Okay, so the FICO score, very important, no question about that. As we look through the rest of Chapter 6, they talk on page 185 about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's a government agency, okay, that basically has been put together, I believe, under the Obama administration, to keep on top of your rights as a debtor when it comes to consumer credit transactions. Home loans, credit cards, student loans, all those types of things, okay? Whether or not, and this came in the wake, of course, of that great financial recession that we had in 2008, 2009, and the home loan crisis that we had in that period of time, and the fact that a lot of individuals naively got involved in all kinds of crazy home mortgages. Of course, they could not pay back, and the homes were foreclosed upon, and they lost their homes. And so here's a place where people can go to make sure that they understand what their rights are before they get involved in these types of loans. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Okay, and so they've tried to make it a lot easier for people to go through loans, cut down the red tape, cut down the fine print when it comes to loans, so that individuals can understand what their rights are before they get involved in these loans. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They also talk about, the authors, about identity theft, okay? And this has definitely become a much more prevalent problem in today's society, getting out your personal financial information, whether it be your credit card numbers, over the internet, basically, or just using them, credit cards at restaurants and things like that. The use of the Social Security number is a particular problem when you file your income tax returns. There's an article here that I found, basically it's entitled, How to Fight Identity Theft at Tax Time. Because the Internal Revenue Service is now requiring almost everybody to file their tax returns online through the e-file concept, while at the same time still requiring people's Social Security numbers. Okay, so obviously once somebody has access to something like a Social Security number, they can certainly defraud many individuals into thinking that they are you. So something you really want to keep on top of certainly is whether or not your cards are being mismanaged or your identity has been stolen. You're obviously going to find out on a credit card basically when you get the card, and that's why it's so important to keep on top of those statements, open them up, review the charges that have been made, just don't take the balance, but review the individual charges, and to contest any charges that you feel in good faith you did not make on your behalf. Very important. You'll find about having your identity taken away at tax time when you attempt to file an income tax return and you're informed by the government that you already filed it and you already have a refund. That's how people steal Social Security numbers at tax time and use them to try to get phony income tax refunds. So a very important situation certainly is to make sure that your identity is not being taken care of, been taken advantage of, excuse me. So you have that definitely to consider. They talk about steps taken to prevent identity theft on top of page 188, table 6.6. And at the bottom of page 188, checklist 6.1, they tell you to take the credit card habits quiz to make sure that you are not abusing credit cards. Okay, as we talked about in the prior class, I happen to be in love with my credit cards. My credit cards do so much for me because I use the credit cards and I don't abuse credit cards. Okay, I'm not getting sucked into the vortex of credit card abuse, paying exorbitant interest rates, fees, and everything else. So the credit card habits quiz on the bottom of page 188 was kind of interesting to take, especially that last item. Does your stomach start churning when you get your credit card bill? Not a very advantageous place to be. Okay, so that basically takes us to the end of chapter 6. Now I'd like to take a look at some of the points in chapter 7 that we have not yet covered. If we take a look, we start to look over on page, I would say, let's take a look at page 213 and the pages that follow, talking about controlling your use of debt. Okay, and again, here's a situation where you might start to go down the slippery slope of having excess debt. Okay, page 214, they have a very short ratio that they call the debt limit ratio. Okay, and at any place in time, you can take just taking the total of your monthly debt payments, okay, outside of your home mortgage, and dividing them by your monthly take-home pay. Remember, that's your pay after taxes have been reduced by your employer. Okay, we learned about that way back when in chapter 2, and the authors recommend that this ratio should be below the 15% level. Once you start getting over that, you start to get concerned about having excess debt, okay, outside that home mortgage. Something you have to be very cognizant of. Again, on page 215, checklist 7.1, the financial danger quiz. Financial danger quiz. They're giving you about basically incurring significant or excessive debt. Right? Does the trip to the mailbox terrify you? Because you aren't sure what you'll find in the way of bills. That's the most telltale